Hi there, welcome to the Disability Law Show. Hope you're having a great day. Sivan Tumarkin alongside John Scholes here, and we got lots to cover on the show today, including 3 reasons why people on long-term disability should apply for CPP disability. Even I can answer that one, Sivan, but we'll get to it. It's really important stuff regardless. Emails, phone calls, all kinds of other things on the show today, but we always start off with the week that was. First, let me get some contact out. 1-855-821-5900 is the phone number anytime. help@disabilityrights.ca is the email address. Sivan, take it away, pal.
Well, John, again, very, very busy week here that we've had at the firm. And, despite the pandemic, insurance companies are, they're making a killing. I mean, they're making a lot of money. And, I suspect that part of the reason that they do that is because they're not paying out claims. And we've seen this with travel insurance claims. I've seen this personally with house insurance claims, car insurance claims, and of course, disability insurance claims. So let me tell you about an interesting story, something that just happened. We were recently retained by an individual just outside of Vancouver with respect to his long-term disability claim. And, this gentleman was cut off long-term disability about 14, 15 months ago. Legitimately, he has mental health issues. And in fact, I spoke with his psychiatrist who expressed just frustration at the insurance company for cutting this person off. And in fact, the psychiatrist, with the permission of the individual who contacted me, provided me with some of the reports that he sent out to the adjuster. And what the insurance company had done is they had sent this individual who contacted me to one of their own doctors, their own psychiatrist. And that psychiatrist had actually said that this person is not as disabled as he says he is and should be able to go back to work. And of course, then the insurance company, the adjuster, used that as a crutch to try and force this individual to go back to work. This person was unable to. In fact, he regressed. He became worse. His mental health state deteriorated to the point where the psychiatrist almost had him committed. And so it's just a very egregious situation. And again, this individual, because of these mental health issues, was quite slow to reach out to us for help. And in fact, it was at the urging of his psychiatrist that he ended up reaching out to me personally. And I spoke with him, and I spoke with the psychiatrist. And John, here's what we did. I sent an email to the adjuster, to the insurance company, and I just got a phone call just within less than 48 hours from the insurance company, from a different adjuster, not the one who had cut off this individual, and they basically said that they want to put him back on claim. It's just unthinkable. 14, 15 months ago, this person was cut off, has been without this income that he is owed, clearly is suffering and has been suffering, and it took an email from me, not even legal claim, an email from me to jolt the insurance company into the realization that if they did not put him back on claim and retroactively pay him everything they owe him, they're going to be in big trouble. Why? Because if we were to start a legal claim, which is the next step I was recommending to my client, to this individual, they would have been not only on the hook for the retroactive amount that they owe him for the last 15 months or so, which, by the way, totaled around $30,000, but they would be also on the hook for punitive damages, extra contractual damage. These are damages meant to punish a party that acts in a high-handed manner, in a very, very bad way in Canada. It's a very high bar to meet, by the way. Not easy to get a court to award punitive damages against anyone, including an insurance company. But you know what? This is one of those cases. I think the insurance company realized it, when they got the email from me, which was a very aggressive email, because I thought this was just preposterous, what they did to this individual. So I'm really happy with the result. But again, it's one of those cases where people need to know, you need to know your rights. Don't let the insurance company walk all over you. And by the way, John, people may be watching this and it may not be applicable to them, but maybe you know someone who needs this information. Maybe you know someone who needs this help. We're here to give this advice for free. We are going to help you. We're going to tell you exactly what your rights are. And if the insurance company is right, I'll tell you they're right. But most of the time when people reach out to me, it's because they know that something has gone very, very bad, and they know the insurance company is not doing what it's supposed to do under the policy.
Would there be a bit of a delay getting this person back on claim, like a recurrence clause? Would there be a little bit of a delay getting the money flowing again, or no?
No, absolutely not. This is not a recurrence clause situation. The person hasn't gone back to work. The person has literally been unable, right? And by the way, I want to say something else. We as lawyers get updates from whichever jurisdictions we're in about new cases, new legal cases. There was a case recently in BC where a judge had, this was in a car accident case, where a judge had specifically commented that the psychiatrist on the defense side was essentially a hired gun. That, the opinion of that psychiatrist could not be, he could not be trusted. So that just tells you this came from a case somewhere in BC. I haven't had time to actually read the case, but I saw the headline. And again, it makes my point. Many of these doctors that these insurance companies are going to for these assessments, they may be great doctors, but oftentimes they will crank out a conclusion that is not congruent with the facts, that is completely contradictory to what the treating doctors are saying. They can be called on that. The insurance company, they can't simply do this with impunity. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And I'm glad that in that court case, the judge actually called out the psychiatrist and the defense just because it was not fair.
Look, never hesitate to reach out to Sivan, a member of his team. The phone number 1-855-821-5900. Plus, if you go to disabilityrights.ca, you will be able to search around there and find one of our long-running radio shows, a station near you. We get the phone calls we get from the radio shows. We play them back here, Sivan. I want to get to a call for today's show, the first one anyways, coming up right now.
In fast food, right?
Yeah.
For 20 years, and I've been diagnosed with lupus for the past, still work, but lately, my lower back, my knees, it's just aching. And the job, they push you so much. They want time, and from the morning from the time you finish work. I would like to retire. Can you give me a letter, do some tests? And she's my doctor for a very long time. And she don't know what I'm going through. It's very hard.
Just very, very tough to listen to, John. But, this is, again, very important people to understand that at our firm, our expertise in not just in disability law, but employment law as well. And you can see this lady is now contemplating retiring. And just this morning, by the way, I answered an email from someone who was telling me, look, I'm on LTD and I'm contemplating retiring. Is that going to affect my LTD payments? And the reality is that we have to look at your individual policy wording, because in some situations, it may very well affect your LTD entitlement. And for that lady who had, called the show, this is something I've been saying before, especially now during this pandemic with the rise of mental health claims. You need to know if you have disability coverage through work. Speak with your HR supervisor or manager, speak with the higher-ups in your company. Many people have disability coverage, short-term, long-term disability, if you don't consider getting it, because you may need it in the future. Remember, I mean, one of my favorite lines, John, from a movie that I really like, The Spy, is when Robert Redford said, when did Noah build the ark? Before the flood, right? So make sure you get insurance coverage if you don't have it. Now, if you do have it, and you're in that situation that this lady finds herself in, apply for it. Apply for short-term or long-term disability. If you get denied, you give me a call, but apply for it. People need to know, John, that this is a safety net. And this safety net is not the insurance company, it's this policy that they have in place that potentially will pay them so that they can take time off and recover, and get better, because that's really the purpose of these policies. It's to replace your income. They're income replacement policies up to a certain amount. Short-term disability policies typically will pay you 80 to 100% of your pre-disability income. Long-term disability policies will typically pay you 60, 65, even 70+% of your pre-disability income while you are getting treatments to try and get better. Okay, so if you have that coverage, just like this lady, you should definitely apply for it. And by the way, John, if people are having issues at work, again, we do employment law too, and oftentimes we have people connecting with us because they have employment questions, but they also have disability questions, and those two areas intersect. So you want to make sure that you do reach out to us, because then we can give you the proper advice that deals with all of the issues, not just with disability or employment.
Well, you did mention the employment side, and that speaks to the fact that when people start and they get an employment agreement, rather than just the salary and how much vacation, they should check if they have disability coverage in there, because quite often they do, right? And if you don't know, it's going to save a lot of headache if you're aware of it.
Yeah, no, you should definitely check. And again, if you don't have that coverage, you should get it. I mean, you could be in a situation where something happens, you're in an accident, God forbid, something happens, you need that coverage, you want to make sure you have it. But many, many employers out there will have that as part of their benefits plan. All you got to do is ask.
Okay, we'll take a short break. Coming up here, 3 things you need to do if you're on long-term disability, LTD, and why you should be applying for CPP disability. That is on the way, so don't go anywhere. In the meantime, 1-855-821-5900, help at disabilityrights.ca. Stick around, coming right back.
You lost your job. They only gave you 2 weeks of severance per year worked. But where can you find out what you're really owed?
I'm going to severancepaycalculator.com.
Find out how much you're owed right now. severancepaycalculator.com.
You've been denied long-term disability. You think you're powerless, but you have a lot more power than you think. I'll tell you a secret. It's a numbers game for the insurance company. They're betting on you walking away from money that they owe you. Don't make that mistake. We resolve disability claims all the time. We force insurers to pay what they owe. We're in your corner.
Call Sivan and his team, 1-855-821-5900, or go to disabilityrights.ca. You lost your job. They said they had a good reason, but you think you've been wrongfully dismissed. Now what are you going to do?
I'm going to employmentlawyer.ca.
Always check with the employment lawyer first at employmentlawyer.ca.
All right, welcome back. Disability Law Show. Lots to cover still with the remaining time. Sivan, so we'll get to it. The phone number, anytime, 1-855-821-5900, help at disabilityrights.ca. Okay, 3 things you need to do if you're on disability, long-term disability, why you should be applying for CPP. The first one is the test to qualify for CPP is tougher, a more stringent test than LTD, right?
Yeah, John, I get asked this all the time. Do I have to apply for CPP disability? What's the purpose? What's the reason?
Right.
Why doesn't the insurance company pay me everything that I'm owed? Look, at the end of the day, I tell people apply for CPP disability. If you get it, it should be easier for you to get LTD. Mm-hmm. The requirements for CPP disability is that your disability be severe and prolonged. Arguably, that's harder to meet than the test for total disability, believe it or not, just based on the wording total disability for LTD policies. But the reality is that I've had many, many people contact me in the past who've asked me, if I apply for LTD, will I get it? And I tell them, look, if you got CPP disability, for those who did, you should be able to get LTD, and it's probably going to help you. Because if the LTD insurer knows that you were approved for CPP disability, they will most likely approve your LTD claim. If they don't, you reach out to us, but they really should.
And that's the second one. If you've been approved for CPP and you're on CPP disability, it's really tough to get cut off LTD because it's a tougher test.
Yep. 2 sides of the same coin,
right.
John. Very important to understand. I tell people, look, if you received CPP disability, it's going to be more difficult for the insurance company to justify a cutoff or to stop paying you on the basis that you're no longer disabled because the government has now said that you are disabled. That's what CPP disability is. It's a recognition essentially from the government, the federal government, that you are in fact disabled, that you have a disability that's severe and prolonged. And so I tell people that if you have CPP disability, it will be more difficult for the insurance company to cut you off. Now they still may, but I'll tell you, those kinds of cases, when I see those, an individual calling me, telling me, look, I was just cut off by my LTD insurer and yet I still receive CPP disability, usually those cases are fairly, I'm not going to say easy, but routinely we resolve them fairly quickly because the insurance company understands that if they maintain the refusal, they're going to get hammered by a judge at the end of the day, and so they reverse course quite often. So, it's to your benefit to get CPP disability if in fact you are on LTD.
Okay, and that point you just made about being cut off LTD but still being on CPP dovetails into the third reason why you should apply, that if you do get cut off LTD, you still have money coming in from CPP.
Absolutely, right? Exactly. And I've had people, obviously, that have contacted me and they say, look, thank God I'm getting CPP disability, the $1,000 or $1,200 a month, whatever it is that they're getting, because, that is sustaining them while we pursue the insurance company for the LTD that the person's owed. So it's really, really important to understand that, if the LTD insurer cuts you off, that that does not impact your CPP disability entitlement. CPP continues to paying you so long as you meet their criteria, so long as your disability is severe and prolonged. Now, John, I know we only talked about 3, but let me just mention a 4th reason for why you should apply. And this is important because people ask me, what happens if I don't apply?
Right.
Well, I'll tell you what happens. Either the insurance company will say that you're in breach of the terms of the policy, of the LTD policy. If there is a term in there, a provision that states that you have to apply, right? If it says you have to apply and you don't apply, they can say you're in breach of the policy and cut you off. Number 2, they may not cut you off, but what they may do, in fact, they often do, is they'll estimate how much they think you should be getting from CPP disability, and then they'll reduce your LTD amounts, your monthly LTD amounts accordingly. Remember that when you're getting CPP disability, you're not getting that on top of LTD.
Right.
It just reduces how much your insurance company has to pay you, which is why they're so interested in you applying. But if you don't apply and you have to apply under the policy, then the insurance company, again, may reduce your LTD payments. So you might as well apply. That's why I tell people it's a no-brainer. Apply for CPP disability if you are disabled. If your injury or illness is severe and prolonged, you cannot work because of it, make sure you apply for CPP disability.
I think that's an important thing you just mentioned, that it's not a top-up. So if you're getting $2,000 from LTD and CPP qualifies you for $1,000, you're not getting 3, you're still getting 2, but your long-term disability insurer is getting credit for $1,000, right?
That's exactly correct, exactly. But again, there are advantages to applying for CPP disability. Yep. You should not see a change, generally speaking, when you apply for CPP disability and get it. But again, if you don't, most likely the insurance company will reduce your LTD payments.
Coming up here, can I refuse to go to my independent assessment? We'll tackle that after a short break. You want to write down the phone number, keep it with you, use it. Have a chat, 1-855-821-5900. Email address is help@disabilityrights.ca. More of the Disability Law Show is on the way. Stick around.
You were being harassed, and when you said something about it, you're the one who lost your job. Now what are you going to do?
I'm going to employmentlawyer.ca.
Always check with the employment lawyer first at employmentlawyer.ca.
Insurance companies deny long-term disability claims all the time. They give lots of excuses. Don't give up. I've seen it all. They've ignored your doctors, they've ignored you. You're angry and you're frustrated. But there's hope. We resolve disability claims all the time. We force insurers to pay what they owe. We're in your corner.
Call Sivan and his team, 1-855-821-5900, or go to disabilityrights.ca. You thought you had a secure job. You didn't see it coming. Now what do?
I'm going to employmentlawyer.ca.
Always check with the employment lawyer first at employmentlawyer.ca.
All right, welcome back. Disability Law Show. Thanks for sticking around for the remainder of the show. I want to get to an email, Sivan. By the way, that email address anytime for you, help@disabilityrights.ca. Right now, Grace writes in. Grace says, my doctor has told me repeatedly that I can't work due to fibromyalgia, fatigue, and severe anxiety. He confirmed as much with the insurance company. However, my insurance has cut me off my benefits because they claim that my doctor told them I wasn't totally disabled. If my doctor says I can't work, shouldn't that be enough?
Yeah, generally speaking, it should be enough, Grace. Now, I'm not talking about, the paper napkin type notes where the doctor simply says the person is sick and is unable to work. That's not enough. You need more meat on the bone. But, John, generally speaking, when people reach out to me, it's because their doctors have already advised the insurance company. They've written letters, reports, and the insurance company, the adjuster, simply refuses to acknowledge reality. Facts are not facts, according to some of these adjusters. And one of the things that insurance companies do is, they play mind games with you. They tell you you're not totally disabled, or your doctor has not said that you're totally disabled. The doctor doesn't have to say that. The doctor simply has to explain why it is that you're unable to do your own occupation or the essential tasks of your own occupation for the first 2 years of your policy. Beyond the 2-year mark, again, the test changes. In order to get LTD, you got to demonstrate medically that you cannot do any occupation for which you're suited for by training, education, or experience. But what Grace is writing here, John, is she's mentioning obviously that term total disability, which is total bull in terms of what people think it means and what insurance companies want you to think it means. It's just not that. Total disability, in the classic sense, in the LTD context, does not mean brain injury, doesn't mean coma, doesn't mean that you are completely paralyzed. All it means is that you cannot do the essential tasks of your occupation, or beyond the 2-year mark, any occupation for which you're suited for. So it's really important to understand that, because again, people are under the impression that it's such a hugely high bar to meet, very, very high bar, and that's just not the case. Now, in this case here, Grace is asking again, is it not sufficient that her doctor basically says that she can't work? I want to caution people, insurance companies are entitled to documentation and they're entitled to information in order to properly adjudicate these claims. To do that, they have to have enough information to make that decision. So again, you want to make sure that if your doctor writes a report that confirms your disability, that you cannot work, to explain why is it from a functional standpoint, whether it's because of a physical illness or injury or psychological illness or injury, why is it that you cannot work? What are the functional impairments? If you have a back injury, as an example, the doctor should say you can't stand for more than 10 minutes without it causing tremendous pain. You can't do this, you can't do that. The doctor has to explain. The doctor should also provide some kind of information about the treatments that are being prescribed, confirm that you are in fact following those treatments. The doctor should hopefully provide a diagnosis if there is one. It's no reason for the insurance company to deny your claim if there's no diagnosis, but if there is one, there should be a diagnosis given, maybe a prognosis if the doctor has one. Again, the more information, the better in support of your disability, the more difficult it will be for the insurance company to refuse your claim.
That term, totally disabled, that's a beauty. Whoever came up with that in insurance, it's a billion-dollar term.
You know what? I'm thinking to myself, John, how many millions of dollars they have made from that term, because people think they have no case, because doctors don't think that their patients are not totally disabled. I had a discussion with a psychologist about a month ago or so in Western Ontario who said to me, yeah, my patient, they can't work because of their depression, but they're not totally disabled. Because again, the doctor doesn't understand, and I don't blame them for it. The psychologist didn't understand what total disability, in quotes, means within the context of long-term disability. It doesn't mean what you and I think it does. Yep. It doesn't mean what doctors think it does. Total disability in the context of LTD simply means that you cannot do the essential tasks of your own occupation for the first 2 years, or any occupation beyond the 2-year mark. That's all it means. Doesn't mean you're paralyzed, doesn't mean you're in a coma, doesn't mean you're brain dead, does not mean any of those things.
Yeah, we've often said, you get a guy who's a car mechanic and he's, burned both hands on a barbecue grill. The guy can't hold a toothbrush, never mind a torque wrench. For all intents and purposes, on a legal standpoint, he's totally disabled, but show 10 people on the street a photograph of his hands bandaged. No, he's not totally disabled. He just burned his hands.
100%, 100%. But John, you're talking about a physical, type of an injury where you can see this becomes even more prominent with mental health type issues, depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder. Especially now with COVID, more and more people need help. They cannot operate. They cannot go to work, even if it's from home. They simply can't because of what's happening to them. Now, in many instances, it's not a permanent thing. It's a temporary thing. But yet, insurance companies and many doctors simply say, no, you're not totally disabled. Now, insurance companies are saying that because they simply don't want to pay. Doctors often conclude that because they don't understand what that term means in the context of LTD. Again, I'm hoping that doctors listen to us, review this information. It's on our website as well. You can read up about it. It's very important to understand if you cannot do your own occupation, you are totally disabled within the meaning of the terms of the policy.
Another place for you to go to ask questions, email, of course, phone calls, but mydisabilityquestions.com, mydisabilityquestions.com. Searchable database, by the way. You can search other questions that have been asked before yours. Might have been answered already. If not, leave it there. Sivan and the team will get to it. This one comes from Rodrigo. Sivan, he says, I've been on LTD for over 3 years from a traumatic brain injury suffered outside the workplace. I subsequently have been diagnosed with depression and chronic migraines. My new case manager has informed me that I must attend a one-time assessment by an OT or physiotherapist. Can I refuse these tests?
So this is an assessment. It's not treatment. Let's make sure that we distinguish between the two. No, you can't. If the insurance company wants you to be seen by one of their doctors, and by the way, when I say seen, I'm telling people now to request Zoom or Skype or WebEx type assessments, not actually go in person unless they want to. But you have to undergo those assessments. You don't have to undergo, infinite amount of them, right? I mean, the insurance company can't keep sending you to these assessments without stop. Generally I tell people, if you have a certain disability, a certain illness, injury, the insurance company is entitled to at least one assessment for whatever is disabling you. So, very important to understand, if you refuse, you may be in breach of your policy terms, and that may mean that the insurance company may have grounds to cut off your LTD benefits. So yes, you do have to do it. But there's ways to prepare. There are ways to mitigate against a potential report that gets generated by one of those insurance assessors that can hurt your case. And a few tips, for example, make sure that you ask your adjuster in writing to provide you with a copy of that report so you can go through it. Almost guaranteed you're going to see a lot of factual mistakes about your medical history. Oftentimes I see people going through those reports and saying, I never said this, that's not in my medical file, I don't have this or that. Again, those are ways to attack the credibility of these insurance assessments. Another tip is make sure your own doctors are aware that you're being sent to one of these assessors. And so when you get a copy of one of these reports and it's not favorable to you and it contradicts what your own doctors are saying, get your doctors to do a rebuttal. Ask your doctor to actually provide their opinion in contrast with whatever the assessor had put in. I mean, think about that. Who's going to have more credibility here? The doctor that's been treating you for weeks, months, or years, or the assessor who saw you for one time for an hour or two? So I tell people, John, there are ways around these assessments. There are ways, that you can combat these assessments. But yes, you do have to attend them. And if you don't, you could be in breach of your policy.
Want to get to one more email quickly here before we wrap for the day, Sivan. This one from Lena says, I went off work due to extreme anxiety last year before I was diagnosed with giant cell arteritis, which is an autoimmune disease. And my doctors have told me this is what is responsible for my condition. The medication I'm on is causing all kinds of side effects. However, the insurance company denied my claim because my doctors aren't treating me specifically for anxiety. Does the diagnosis matter?
No, it does not matter, but I'm going to qualify that. To the extent that there is a disability and there is a diagnosis, the insurance company should be advised of the diagnosis. However, you can have people with multiple reasons, multiple injuries or multiple illnesses, a combination of injuries and illnesses, John, and who knows what's disabling the individual. Sometimes it's murky. Sometimes it's one thing, if not that, then it's another thing. Look, the insurance company really at the end of the day should pay you benefits if you cannot work because of an injury, an illness, or a combination of them. And, if the doctors here are basically saying this person cannot work, whether it's, from the arthritis, whether it's from anxiety, whatever it is, as long as they can provide backup for that, meaning that they can provide an opinion and explain why it is that functionally, Lena is unable to work, the insurance company should be paying her. And if they're not, she has a legal claim against the insurer. And I would not tell her to appeal a denial or a cutoff. I'd tell her to start a legal claim immediately, because that's the way to generate the most amount of pressure on the insurance company to come to the table and resolve the case.
Again, it's the anxiety thing. It's the mental disability that they fail to recognize, right? Because you can't see it on an x-ray.
Absolutely. And insurance companies are very prejudicial, I think, to mental health illnesses. And again, now in the age of COVID, John, I mean, not a week goes by without the media reporting somewhere in the country and frankly globally about this tsunami of mental health claims that are going to come about. Not just disability claims, but people struggling, people having breakdowns left, right, and center. Kids are having breakdowns. So for insurance companies to take the position that these are not legitimate disabilities or they're not going to pay, that's ludicrous. They know it's ludicrous. They're simply taking, that position because they know that many people will not fight for their rights. They know many people will get bullied by those insurers. And frankly, it's unfair, but there's no one policing these insurance companies and forcing them to pay these individuals what they're owed. Now, you can stand up for your rights. It's not hard. We are here for you. We are going to fight for you. All you have to do is reach out to us.
All right, we're done for another show. Hope you learned something. If not, carry on with a phone call, learn more. 1-855-821-5900. Our email address is help@disabilityrights.ca. Just disabilityrights.ca is where you'll find the radio shows, and always mydisabilityquestions.com. We'll catch you next time. Disability Law Show.